Hello, first graders. It's me, Mr. B. Happy Friday. It's one of my favorite times of the day when we get to read out of some book that we can share together. And today we're going to continue reading the book that we uh, started reading back at school. A book about continents and countries and maps. So, if you remember, that is a book about the real world. So, it's nonfiction. And for nonfiction books, the author's purpose is to teach us about the real world. In this case, the title tells us the author's main idea and purpose is to teach us about continents and countries and maps. But when we read nonfiction, the purpose for us to read that isn't just to get the main idea into our heads, but more importantly, is to get those details, the small pieces of information that are on each page, get those into our brain for the rest of our lives so that our brain gets bigger and we get smarter and we become leaders. So before we move ahead today, let's just think about what we read yesterday. So yesterday we read about Canada and Mexico and South America. So I'm going to go back and think, what are some of the details that hopefully will get into our brain for the rest of our lives and help us to make the world a better place with our brains. So first we read about Canada. We learned that Canada is the second largest country in the world in terms of its land area, but it has less people, fewer people than the United States, because so much of Canada is up really far up north, close to the North Pole, close to where Santa lives, but it's not easy for people to live there if they're not Santa or native Canadians. So they don't actually, even though they have much more land than we do in Canada, they don't have as many people. We also learned another important detail. The capital of Canada is Ottawa. Ottawa. We also learned that in Canada they speak two languages, English in the western half towards the left, French in the right half. We know that Mrs. Cartier's family came from the French part of Canada. That's why when we say goodbye and thank you to her in the library, we don't say thank you, we don't say goodbye, we say merci beaucoup, to honor her family's heritage. We also learned that just like there were Native Americans in the United States, there were Native Canadians. We call them Inuit or Eskimo people. Up there in northern Canada, there are polar bears in addition to Santa Claus. The Native Canadians, the Inuit, they are excellent at ice fishing. That's where they get a lot of their food. Okay. And then we talked about Mexico, and we learned some details about Mexico. We know Mexico is to the south of the United States, and that people in Mexico grow corn and sugar cane and avocados and coffee. We learned that a lot of Mexico is this flat plain that's up high. It's called a plateau. We learned that in Mexico, the capital city is Mexico City. And the native Mexicans, we learned, were called the Incas and the Mayas and the Aztecs. And they had pyramids kind of similar to the Egyptian pyramids, but a little bit different as well. You hear my daughter, Sophie, in the background. She's talking to Bella. We learn that the people in Mexico speak Spanish because after the Incas and the Mayas and the Aztecs were there, then the Spanish, after Christopher Columbus founded the new land of the Western Hemisphere of the Americas, Spanish came and they took over Mexico. So the main language in Mexico is Spanish, but people also still speak the language of the Incas and the Mayas and the Aztecs. We learned that they wear beautiful dresses when they celebrate their culture. And then we learned about Central America, south of Mexico. And we learned that, what was it, 7 countries? Am I right? Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. We learned that the largest country in Central America is Nicaragua and the smallest is El Salvador. Right? And we learned that the area of Central America has a lot of mountains and volcanoes, beaches and rainforests, and the farmers there grow coffee, bananas, pineapples. That's also an area that the Spanish took over. So people there speak Spanish. Also part of Central America are the West Indies, the land that Christopher Columbus accidentally discovered. And one of those places is Puerto Rico, where Luke went about a month ago. It's actually part of the United States now. So here's a picture of Puerto Rico with the American flag, the Puerto Rican flag. Puerto Rico's not a state, it's a territory. So those are all really good details to get into our brain. And now we're going to read the next chapter, chapter 4, about South America. So the next 2 pages will be all about South America, the continent to the south of North America. And we're going to try to get some details into our brain. So here we go. Ready? It says there are 12 countries, 12 on the continent of South America. The largest country in South America is Brazil. That's where the Olympics were a few years ago. And the smallest country is Suriname. The Amazon rainforest, remember we talked about that in science. The Amazon rainforest in South America is the largest rainforest in the world. That rainforest is almost as big as the whole United States. And so if we look at a map of South America, there's Central America, which is actually part of North America, Venezuela, and then underneath Guyana, Suriname, French Guiana, and then Brazil, this biggest country in South America. And right along the Amazon River is the Amazon rainforest, which is almost as big as the whole of the United States. And when we look at this map, we see some other countries, Colombia, did I say Venezuela already? Ecuador, Peru. I think that's Cyrus. Isn't that where your family comes from? Peru. Then underneath Peru, Bolivia, Paraguay, Chile, and down towards the south, Argentina. When you get down to the south end of South America, it's kind of like Canada. It's getting closer to Antarctica. So as you go further south, away from the equator, the center of the earth is up here at the north of South America. It's very hot and tropical, but the farther south you get, the colder it is. And down here at the tip of South America in Argentina, they've got penguins living down there, and it's very cold. And then if you keep going down to south, you get to Antarctica. All right, page 21. Thousands of people and many different kinds of animals and plants live in the Amazon rainforest. There are electric eels, poisonous arrow frogs, and slithering snakes. There are also giant lily pads that can hold the weight of an adult person. That would be amazing. The mighty the Amazon River flows through the center of the Amazon rainforest. It is the second longest river in the world. And just very quickly, if you look at a map of South America, there's the Amazon River, Amazon rainforest, kind of in northern Brazil, Ecuador, southern Venezuela. So that's what they're talking about. Amazon River, the second longest river in the world. Okay. By the way, I don't know if it's going to mention it here, but I've read elsewhere that a high percentage of the plants and animals in the world actually live in the Amazon rainforest. A lot of the oxygen that we breathe comes from the Amazon rainforest, so we really have to work to take care of it and keep it from being hurt by pollution and by um, by people cutting it down, frankly. So we'll talk more about that. Here it talks about the Kayopo. It says the Kayopo are a group of people who have lived in the Amazon rainforests of Brazil, for thousands of years. They are a warrior tribe. You see them here? The Kayopo are expert hunters and fishermen. They also gather food such as nuts and berries from the rainforest. Ooh, here's some pictures of the Kayopo. Kind of looks somewhat like the Native Americans, but different also, and they have their own customs and traditions. Clothing. Page 22, so now page 23, it says the Andes Mountains make up the longest mountain range in the world. The mountain range is on the western coast of South America and is in 7 of the South American countries. The highest volcano in the world, Hoyos del Salado, is in the Andes. There's a picture of it. So if we quickly go back up to look at the map, what they're talking about is the west. You see this brown area starting up here in Venezuela? That brown going all the way down, that's the Andes. And you can see it's pretty much the whole length of South America on the western end has the Andes Mountains. I didn't realize that was the longest mountain range in the world. That's another detail. I didn't know that, and I'm 55. You're always learning. It says there are ancient and modern cities in the Andes Mountains. High on top of a mountain in southern Peru, ruins remain of an ancient city that was built by the Inca who lived there long ago. This city, there's a picture of it, built by the Incas. That city is called Machu Picchu. You can still go there and visit it. Then the next sentence here says La Paz in Bolivia is a busy modern city. It's also in the Andes. There's a picture of La Paz in the country of Bolivia. It's also up in the Andes. And that is the end of our chapter on South America. And you can see, sneak peek, tomorrow or Monday, we're going to read about Europe. Right? And Europe, well, there's Ireland that we read about, and United Kingdom, England, France, Austria, Russia, Italy, where the Pope lives, in the Vatican City, Greece. So there's Spain. We're going to learn all about that next time. But let's quickly think. What are some details that we got into our brain about South America? We learned about Machu Picchu, the ancient Inca city up high in the Andes Mountains. We learned about La Paz from the country of Bolivia. We learned about the fact that the Andes Mountains are the longest mountain chain in the world, and that 7 of the countries of South America are contain that mountain range. We learned about the Native Americans who live in the Amazon rainforest, the Kayopo. They're hunters and fishers. We learned that the Amazon rainforest has lily pads that are so big they could hold a human being on them. I didn't know that. They also have those poison arrow frogs, electric eels, slithering snakes. The Amazon River is the 2nd longest river in the world. I wonder what the longest river in the world is. It's not the Mississippi River. We'll learn about it eventually. We learned that, if I remember, 9 countries? 12 countries in South America. Still got to get that into my brain. The largest country is Brazil, and the smallest is Suriname. All right, first graders, I hope you enjoyed learning about South America. I hope you have a most excellent weekend. Do a little bit of reading every day, a little bit of math fact practice. Practice your spelling words and your sight words. Help your moms and dads and brothers and sisters and grandmas and grandpas. And I'll see you back at home school on Monday. And I hope to see you back at Holy Apostles as soon as possible. Take care. I miss you. All right. Peace out. Bye.